Hello, I'm Renato Johnson, and welcome to a special election edition of Wildcat News.
And I'm Grace Hager. Ballots are still being counted across the country, but a lot of races and issues have been called. While there were expectations of numerous U.S. House seats changing parties and a potential majority control change in the Senate, many seats remained in the same party hands.
Ian Alvano will have more on those races in a bit. But first, let's talk about Kentucky. Our ballots had a couple of contentious constitutional amendments, along with some key state and local races. Voters wanted their voices heard.
Kentucky's Secretary of State Michael Adams says the state is on track for its second largest voter turnout in midterm history. Kentucky has only hit or surpassed a 50% voter turnout one other time. That was during President George W.H. Bush's term in 1990 when voter turnout hit 50.9%. According to Pew Research Center, voter turnout typically drops during midterm elections, but the voter turnout during this year's midterm elections has bucked that trend.
Maggie Stinson is here to give us a rundown of some of the bigger races.
Thank you, Renato. Thank you, Grace. We'll start our rundown with Kentucky's constitutional amendments. Amendment 2 was one of the most closely watched races for Kentucky in this election, and the measure to add an amendment to the state constitution denying the right to abortion failed. You may remember that Kansas struck down a similar measure earlier this year. Amendment 1 also failed. That amendment would have given the state legislature the power to call itself into special sessions. Currently, only the governor has that power, and it looks like it will remain that way. Moving on to elected officials. In one of the first races called last night, Republican Senator Rand Paul won re-election over Charles Booker. This will be his third Senate term. In another race called quickly, incumbent Republican Representative Andy Barr won his seat back over Democrat Jeff Young. Barr has represented District 6 since 2013. Turning to local races, incumbent Lexington Mayor Linda Gorton has been re-elected over challenger David Kloiber. This will be Gorton's second term as mayor. In Fayette County, Democrat Don Blevins Jr. will retain his seat as a Fayette County clerk. In the Fayette County Sheriff's race, incumbent Democrat Kathy Witt has won her race over Republican Christopher Holliday. And finally, Democrat Gary Ginn retains his seat as Fayette County coroner over Republican challenger Larry Owens. While putting our stories together for this week's newscast, we wondered why coroner is an elected office. Wildcat News reporter Jackson Houston decided to find out.
Coroner. It's not a pleasant job, but someone has to do it. While a medical examiner performs autopsies, the coroner oversees it all and investigates deaths where a doctor is unable to determine the cause of death. The reason for the coroner's presence on the ballot actually has historical significance.
The office of the coroner was established around the year 1194 in medieval England. It was a way of taking the treasure and loot from the deceased and giving it to the crown. Now, the more modern take on a coroner came around 1830, also in England, during the cholera pandemic. During the cholera pandemic, they had so many deaths, they needed somebody who could accurately put this on all the death certificates and investigate deaths. This led to England creating multiple death registration acts and turned the coroner into a sort of federal agent. In a modern context, an elected coroner benefits the people because if the sheriff is found guilty of a crime, in most states, the coroner is tasked with arresting them.
Coroner. It's not a pleasant job.
We had a historic election winner here in Lexington. Genevieve Lund introduces us to Rebecca Blankenship.
Behind the rustling leaves at Phoenix Park in downtown Lexington is a happy Rebecca Blankenship. She and the Berea community made history at the polls yesterday. Rebecca Blankenship is the first openly transgender elected official in the state of Kentucky. She will take over the position of becoming a member of the Berea Community School Board.
I'm really excited for the LGBT kids for whom the future is now. When I was a kid, a trans person was not somebody that was regarded as serious. And to know now that children in Kentucky can say, in the state that is regarded in some ways as anti-LGBT, it's regarded in some ways as constricting in its possibilities, in my opinion, inaccurately. Those kids can now say, we have a brighter future.
Rebecca has 4 children currently enrolled in the Berea district. She hopes to focus on raising pay for teachers, increasing transparency, and expanding opportunities in vocational education.
You were ready. That's amazing.
Reporting for Wildcat News is Genevieve Lund.
And that is your local election rundown. I'm Maggie Stinson. Back to Grace and Renardo for a look at the national races.
Early voting across the country was happening at a record-setting pace just before Election Day.
With the entire U.S. House and 1/3 of the Senate seats up for grabs, Americans wanted to make their voices heard. Now the votes are in, but the ballots are still being counted. Karen Kafa has the latest from Capitol Hill.
We don't have the definitive number yet when it comes to the balance of power in either chamber here on Capitol Hill, but there are some things we do know about this midterm cycle. First, it wasn't the red wave that some Republicans predicted and Democrats had feared. The economy, inflation was high on voters' minds, but it wasn't the only issue that motivated them in the voting booth, and the country remains closely divided among the two political parties. The battle for control of the U.S. Senate is coming down to just a handful of critical races. Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, where a tight contest between incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker could go to a December runoff.
I look forward to continuing on that journey together over the next 6 years.
I'm like Ricky Bobby. I don't come to lose.
So far, Democrats garnering enough victories across the country to stave off Republicans' pursuit of a red wave. Each party now clinging to hopes of winning narrow majorities in at least one chamber. Democrats earning a much-needed opportunity to maintain Senate control with one critical win.
I'll be the next U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania.
As Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman defeated Trump-endorsed Dr. Mehmet Oz to flip the formerly Republican-held Senate seat. The GOP also falling short on Senate races in New Hampshire and Colorado, but taking key victories in Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio, where Republican J.D. Vance defeated Democratic Senate candidate Tim Ryan.
I will never forget the great people of Ohio. Thank you for this honor to serve you.
Control of the House, too, remains uncertain. Republicans who expected to benefit from high inflation and historical trends have not seen all of their anticipated victories materialize. However, GOP momentum in the closing stretch has given the party some hope.
It is clear that we are going to take the House back.
But with so many races yet to be determined, the balance of power in Washington is still up in the air. And whichever party takes control of either chamber here on Capitol Hill, the majority is going to be a slim one, and that will also impact how the Biden White House approaches its agenda for the next 2 years in dealing with Capitol Hill. On Capitol Hill, I'm Karen Kafa.
With nearly 1/3 of our students coming from other states, absentee voting is something on the minds of many.
Ian Alvano has an inside look at the process for our out-of-state Wildcats.
Kentucky is home to many out-of-state students. I wanted someone to explain how absentee ballots worked. Is it easy for out-of-state students to get an absentee ballot and vote in the election? We'll see.
All I had to do was, when I went back home over fall break, I just went to it wasn't the DMV, it was one of the government offices, and then just filled out some paperwork, and then they ended up mailing it down. I had to show an ID saying that I'm out of state right now.
So the process might not be that difficult after all. This is good news for the nearly 1/3 of UK students who are from another state. Connor Morrisard is a UK freshman from Pennsylvania.
I think it's pretty easy for college kids to vote, and the only excuse would be is you're just lazy, because anyone can go out. If you take 5 minutes out of your day, you can get a ballot, like the absentee ballot, if you're not in the state, or if you're in the state, you could just drive to one of your local spots and just vote. So there's really no excuse for not voting.
As long as they meet deadlines, those absentee ballots will be counted along with the rest. In Lexington, Ian Alvano, Wildcat News.
Now let's take a look at some of the results from across the country yesterday. Here's Ian Alvano with more.
Thank you, Renardo and Grace. As mentioned earlier, Pennsylvania's Senate race is the big story here, with Democrat John Fetterman flipping a seat from red to blue by defeating Republican Mehmet Oz, more notably known as Dr. Oz. Oz conceded the race in a phone call to Fetterman this morning. A number of other Senate races are still too close to call. One of those is Georgia's race between incumbent Democrat Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker. As Karen Kafa mentioned earlier, there is a good likelihood that this race may result in a runoff in December. In Nevada's Senate race, incumbent Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto is running against Republican challenger Adam Laxalt. The race is still considered too close to call. Same with the Arizona race, where incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly is facing off against Republican Blake Masters. That race is currently leaning in Kelly's direction, but has not been officially called in the Grand Canyon state. Finally, in a race that has been called, Republican Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson retained his seat. He was considered the most vulnerable GOP incumbent since President Biden won the state in the 2020 election. We will keep an eye on all those races still in progress and bring you any updates as they may happen. I'm Ian Alvano. Back to you, Grace and Renardo.
The U.S. isn't the only country electing representatives. 3 other countries recently saw a return to power by previously elected officials. Brazil has elected 76-year-old Lula da Silva as the next president in a close race. This came after 4 years of Jair Bolsonaro's far-right administration. Many believe that this win represents Brazil's return to the left and stands as a personal comeback for Silva after facing imprisonment for corruption allegations. This will be his 3rd term after previously governing Brazil for 2 consecutive terms between 2003 and 2010.
Also on Sunday, China's Communist Party formally re-elected Xi Jinping as the party's general secretary for another 5 years. He's expected to make history by accepting a 3rd presidential term during the annual legislative sessions in March. After removing the presidential 2-term limit, this could potentially allow Jinping to rule indefinitely. The 69-year-old leader is exempted by some to try to stay in power for life.
On Thursday, Israel's Central Elections Committee announced its final count of seats. This gives Benjamin Netanyahu and his political allies a majority with 64 seats in the legislature. President Isaac Herzog will begin consultations with politicians today on forming a new government once results are officially certified. Netanyahu's return as leader could spell fundamental shifts to Israel's society, including a new Jewish nationalist religious power alliance. Coming up on Wildcat News, we'll have campus news, weather, and more.
We'll be right back.
Worried about your friend, but don't know how to reach out?
You could say, how are you, or get a fake tattoo. You could ask with an app if it works for you. You could chat with them in VR, it's all good. If you think you should check in, yeah, you should.
Whatever gets you talking. Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Whatever gets you talking. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org.
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? I'm high. Oh.
Welcome back. President Eli Capilouto has banned Sophia Rosing from UK's campus after video showing her assaulting a black student and yelling the N-word over 200 times, as well as other foul language. In an email sent out to the campus community, Capilouto wrote, "I have also determined that she will not be eligible to re-enroll as a student. She is permanently banned from the campus. Although she is no longer a student, we must continue our investigations." She has since pleaded not guilty and has been released on bail for her charges of assault, public intoxication, and disorderly conduct and is due back in court Monday. But one organization on campus says they're still fighting for more. The UK NAACP president says he's shocked but not surprised by the lack of transparency shown by the university these past couple of days.
Personally, I feel like the university isn't doing enough. And that's not even just for this situation. This is not the first time that students have got together, mobilized, and said the university needs to do more. Just 2 years ago, we were fighting for them to get a racist mural taken out of a building, and that mural is still up in the building. The building is just closed, but they still haven't taken it down.
Hundreds gathered for the March Against Racism on Monday night after an on-campus racial attack took place early Sunday morning. Cell phone video swept the internet showing 22-year-old UK student Sophia Rosing assaulting another student, Kyla Springs, while using racial slurs repeatedly. Students and activists spoke not only about the incident, but also about how the university has handled it since. Springs spoke at the march, sharing a statement promoting unity within the community, saying, "I'm deeply saddened by the events that took place, but I'm most grateful for justice that is to come." The NCAAP of Lexington is hosting a virtual town hall tonight to address racial violence and anti-blackness on campus. Several guest speakers are expected, and they are hoping to continue conversations about building the community. There are resources available on campus for students who would like additional support after incidents like these. For referral to services or to receive clinical support, go to Get Help page at studentsuccess.uky.edu/get-help. If you witness discrimination, harassment, or sexual misconduct, you can also file a report online from the same site. As always, if you have immediate safety concerns or emergencies, please call 911.
Estill County is under a local state of emergency after a brush fire impacted hundreds of acres in the area yesterday. Judge Executive Donnie Watson says that the country has been under a burn ban for some time to prevent events like this from happening. The smoke has traveled to UK's campus and has concerned about the impacts of air pollution in our area. The Lexington Fire Department has since issued an open burning ban for Fayette County lasting until 7 a.m. Friday. Fayette County is at an elevated risk of fire danger. There have already been fires this week. All residents and businesses in Fayette County should avoid setting fire outdoors until the ban expires.
Fayette County Public Schools are back open after closing earlier this week due to increasing illness among staff and students. At least 25 districts around Kentucky have closed since the start of November to try to keep the flu, RSV, and COVID at bay. This has impacted over 100,000 students across the state.
Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced today that his company will lay off more than 11,000 employees. The layoffs will affect what are known as companies of the family apps, Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, as well as the virtual reality business labs. Zuckerberg has made the decision based on the belief that e-commerce would continue to grow and provide a strong source of revenue for the company. The layoffs will reduce the company's workforce by about 13%.
American basketball star Brittany Griner has been moved from a detention center outside of Moscow to a Russian penal colony. She is serving a 9-year sentence on drug smuggling charges after she carried hashish oil into Russia. The transfer follows a Russian appeals court decision that upheld her conviction last month. Russian prison transfers can extend from several days to several weeks. A statement released by Griner's legal team says they do not have information on Griner's exact current location or her final destination.
Hi everyone, I'm Elena Tobo here with your Wildcat weather. November is looking a little different this year as temperatures aren't so low as compared to last year. We have some pretty interesting weather coming up in the weekend, so let's take a look at our 5-day forecast. Tonight, temperatures will drop down to 44 degrees. Tonight, temperatures will drop down to 44 degrees, and tomorrow is mostly sunny. We have a high of 74 and a low of 59. Then we have a rainy Friday with the high of 62 and a low of 34, so don't forget your umbrella on Friday. And Saturday and Sunday will be mostly sunny, but the highs will be a bit on the lower side compared to this week with a high of 44. This is Elena Tobo with your Wildcat weather. We'll be right back.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand, trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
The family's visit to the forest inspired a beautiful question. Mother, mother, am I a tree? You tell me to stand tall. You tell me to stay rooted. I think I am a tree. My child, of course you are. But what kind of tree will you be? The kind to hug or the kind to climb? Doesn't matter what you choose, so long as you choose to be a tree that's kind.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Everyone thought the drama would be the huge amount of money in this week's Powerball jackpot.
Instead, technical issues, security protocols, and delays in processing ticket sales pushed back the drawing for the record-setting lottery by 10 hours. The final jackpot was over $2 billion, yes with a B, $2 billion, and one person won it all. The ticket was purchased in LA County in California. While the winner has not yet come forward, the gas station that sold the ticket was awarded $1 million. By the way, the numbers were 10, 33, 41, 47, and 56, with the Powerball 10 in case you may have won a smaller prize. You know, Renardo, I honestly have no idea what I would do with that much money. What's the first thing you would buy?
The first thing I would buy, probably a new car, since I really need one. But I would also just use money to just like travel to like probably Europe. What about you?
I don't blame you. I don't know. I feel like I would invest it immediately.
That's also really smart.
I mean, I don't know. It's a crazy amount of money, but that's all we have with your Wildcat News for tonight. Thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you next Tuesday for more.